I turned their schemes against them during our family gathering and came out on top. My brother's wife slid the pen across the table like she was handing me a slice of cake, all sweet eyes and rehearsed calm, and my dad leaned in over my shoulder to block the view of the top page like that would make me sign faster. The backyard was loud with plates clinking and cousins shouting over each other, fairy lights humming above us, smoke from the barbecue drifting into my hair. Somewhere near the patio heater, my aunt was laughing too hard at something that wasn't that funny. My mom stood at the sliding door with her arms crossed, watching me the way she watches a pot that's about to boil over, ready to swoop in and fix it. Just initial here, my brother, Liam, said, tapping the paper with 2 fingers, impatient, like my hesitation was an inconvenience. It's only for the bank's file. We can't move forward without it. His knee bounced under the table. His smile looked glued on. I didn't pick up the pen. I stared at the document header, guarantee and indemnity, and felt my throat tighten like my body was trying to swallow my voice before it got me in trouble. The paper smelled like fresh printer ink. My palms were damp. My heart kept doing that ugly flutter like a bird hitting a window. Liam's wife, Chloe, gave me that little head tilt that means be nice in front of people. Dad's hand stayed on the corner of the page, firm, like I might snatch it and run. "Don't make this a whole thing," he murmured, low enough that only I could hear. "Everyone's here. We're celebrating. Sign it, and we'll eat." My mom's eyes flicked to my face and then away, already pretending she wasn't part of it. I slid my chair back just enough that it squeaked. Not dramatic, but loud in that sudden way everything gets loud when you're the only one not playing along. "I'm not signing a guarantee," I said, and the words landed heavier than I expected. Liam's smile dropped. Chloe's eyes widened, then narrowed fast, like she'd swapped masks mid-breath. Dad's jaw flexed. "You're embarrassing us," he hissed, and I felt something in me go very still. I reached into my handbag and pulled out my own folder, thick, tabbed, ugly with neon sticky notes, and placed it on top of their neat little stack. "No," I said, voice steadying as I spoke. "You tried to embarrass me into signing in front of an audience. If we're doing this publicly, we're doing it properly. So tell everyone what you just asked me to sign." 3 weeks earlier, it was a Tuesday night, and I was eating toast over the sink because I'd worked late and the idea of making a real dinner made me want to cry. My phone buzzed with a notification from my bank, an email, then a text, then another email. At first, I assumed it was one of those annoying, "we've updated our privacy policy" things. But the subject line stopped me cold. Loan application, action required. I hadn't applied for any loan. I hadn't even bought a couch recently. I wiped my hands on my jeans and opened it, expecting it to be spam, and instead it was a confirmation from a broker I'd spoken to once, months ago, when I was curious about pre-approval someday. The email thanked me for submitting documentation and asked me to confirm the details of my co-borrower arrangement. There was a PDF attached. I clicked the PDF, and my stomach sank so hard I actually had to put my palm flat on the bench to steady myself. My name was on it, my address, my employer, my income. It even had my old driver's license number, the one I replaced last year. And under applicant 2, it listed Liam. Under purpose, it said home purchase, owner-occupier. I read it twice, then a third time like repetition would turn it into a misunderstanding. My ears started ringing. I could feel heat creeping up my neck. I called the broker immediately, thumb slipping on the screen because my hand had started to shake. He answered on the 3rd ring, cheerful. "Hey, great timing. I didn't submit this." I cut in, and my voice sounded thin and sharp even to me. "I didn't apply for a loan. Why is my name on an application with my brother?" There was a pause. A click of a mouse. Paper rustling. His tone shifted into professional caution. "Oh, right. I spoke to your father earlier," he said slowly. "He said you were happy to help with serviceability. He provided documents." "My father provided my documents?" I repeated, and it came out like a question, even though it wasn't. "Pay slips," he admitted. "An ID scan. Some bank statements." I assumed. I did not consent, I said, forcing each word out through the tightness in my chest. "Stop the application. Right now, he stammered apologies. He said, miscommunication. He said, family. He said, we'll withdraw it. But my body didn't relax because I knew how this works. Once your details are floating around in someone else's hands, you don't get to pretend it's fine just because a man on the phone sounds sorry. After I hung up, I sat on my kitchen floor with my back against the cupboard, phone still in my hand, and stared at the grout lines like they might tell me what to do. The toast went cold on the plate. My head felt full of cotton and glass at the same time. I kept thinking about the last time I'd updated my address with my parents. How my mom asked me to email her a copy of my license, just in case. How Dad said it was smart to keep family files together. How Liam had joked, "Must be nice having your life sorted." I'd laughed like it was harmless. It wasn't harmless. It was access. The next morning, before work, I called my bank. Then I called the credit reporting agency. I placed a temporary ban on my credit file. I changed passwords to everything that mattered. I turned on two-factor authentication on accounts I didn't even use. I requested my credit report and watched my own name scroll past me in black and white like a stranger's file. There were two inquiries I didn't recognize. One was the broker. The other was a car finance company. My skin went clammy. I called the car finance company and asked what the inquiry was linked to. The woman on the phone hesitated, then said, "A Holdenuta." Like that word meant nothing to her, but my brain immediately pictured Liam's grin and the way he'd been talking about needing a reliable vehicle for months, like being unreliable was everyone else's fault. I didn't sleep much that week. I kept replaying old conversations, hearing the second meanings I'd ignored. Dad telling me, "You've got good credit, that's a blessing." Mom saying, "You're the stable one." Liam texting, "We might need you for something, just a signature, nothing major." Chloe saying, "You don't mind helping family, do you?" In that syrupy tone that makes no feel like violence. I could have confronted them immediately. The urge was there. The anger felt like it had its own pulse. But I know my family. If I went in hot, they'd cry and deny and call me paranoid and make it about my attitude. They'd move the scheme sideways. They'd try again, quieter. So I did what I always do when I'm overwhelmed. I got organized. I printed the broker email. I requested the PDF again so I'd have it saved. I asked the broker, politely, because politeness gets you more than rage on the phone, to email me a summary of who provided the documents and when. He tried to dance around it. I kept my tone calm and asked again. He sent it. Dad's name, Dad's phone number, Dad's email. Then I looked at the date Mom had texted me. "Can you come to Sunday lunch? We're doing a family get-together. Liam has news." It was scheduled for the same weekend the loan application was initiated. So the news wasn't an announcement. It was a trap with potato salad. I rang my Aunt Tanya, the one person in my extended family who doesn't flinch at confrontation. She's blunt, loud, and immune to my dad's charm. I told her what happened. There was a silence on the line. Then she said, "Bring the paperwork to lunch. Do not sign a single thing. And don't let them corner you in a room. Keep it where people can see." I didn't want to do it publicly. I hated the idea of being the reason the table went quiet. But I hated the alternative more, quietly being used and then blamed for not smiling about it. So I made a folder. Tabs, timeline, copies, screenshots, my credit report, the broker's summary email, the bank's fraud prevention advice, even a text from Liam that said, "It's literally nothing, just initial. Dad said you'd be chill." And I rehearsed what I'd say in my car like I was practicing for a work presentation, except my audience was my own family and the stakes were my financial life. That's how I ended up in my parents' backyard with fairy lights overhead and Liam's celebration lunch, turning into a paperwork ambush. After I told them, "Tell everyone what you just asked me to sign," the table went strange. People weren't fully paying attention yet. There was still chatter, still kids running around. But the adults closest to us could sense something was wrong. My grandma, sitting at the end with a cardigan draped over her shoulders, looked up from her plate and frowned. My uncle paused mid-sip. Chloe's smile twitched like she was trying to glue it back on. Dad's voice got tight. "Not now," he said. "Now," I replied, and I surprised myself with how steady I sounded. "You picked now when you slid a guarantee across the table and tried to make me sign it like it was a birthday card." Liam's face went red. You're being dramatic, he snapped, loud enough that my cousin across the table looked over. I opened my folder to the first tab and slid the broker email across the table toward my uncle, because my uncle is the kind of person who reads things carefully and asks questions. I'm not being dramatic, I said. I'm being careful, because someone used my details to apply for a loan with Liam as co-borrower, without my consent. The backyard noise didn't stop, but the space around our table did. It's like sound knows when to step back for bad news. My mom finally moved, stepping closer with that pleading look she uses when she wants me to swallow my feelings to keep the peace. Sweetheart, she started. No, I cut in gently, because if I didn't say it gently, she'd act like I was attacking her. Mom, I'm not doing the sweetheart thing. Not today. Chloe's voice went sharp. That's not what happened, she said quickly. We talked about it. You said you'd help. I looked her in the eye. Show me where I said that, I replied. Chloe blinked. Her mouth opened, then closed. Liam shifted in his chair like a kid caught cheating. Dad tried to laugh. It came out wrong. It's a family plan, he said, like that phrase explains everything. You've got the best serviceability. It's temporary. Liam and Chloe just need a boost to get approved. You won't pay anything. My Aunt Tanya, who'd been hovering nearby with a drink, took one step closer and said, Mark, a guarantee isn't a boost. It's a responsibility. She looked at me. Is this a guarantee? I nodded. Yes. Dad's eyes flashed. Stay out of it, he snapped. Tanya shrugged. Don't do dodgy stuff in front of people then. My heart was hammering. My hands were cold. But the anger had a clean edge now because the lies were out in the open. Dad, I said, you told the broker I'd agreed. You provided documents. I have it in writing. I tapped the paper. So either you explain why you did that, or you stop trying to make me feel like I'm the problem for noticing. My mom's eyes filled immediately. Of course. Tears are a shield. We're just trying to help Liam, she whispered. They've been trying so hard. Houses are expensive. Everything's so hard right now. I glanced at Liam. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He stared at the table, jaw tight. Chloe stared at me like I was stealing something from her. My uncle cleared his throat. Mark, he said slowly to my dad. Did you actually send her payslips to a broker? Dad's shoulders went rigid. He hated being questioned by anyone other than me. She's my daughter, he said, like that was an answer. That's not an answer, my uncle replied. Grandma spoke then, voice small but clear. Liam, she said, and the way she said his name made him finally look up. Did you ask your sister before you did this? Liam swallowed. We mentioned it, he muttered. I let out a short laugh. I didn't mean to. It came out tired. Mentioned, I repeated. You said, just initial something, it's nothing. That's not asking. That's hoping I'm too polite to read. Chloe's cheeks flushed. You're acting like we're criminals, she said, and her voice wobbled just enough to make it sound like she was the victim. I pointed to the top of the document they'd slid to me. This is a guarantee. If you miss payments, the bank comes to me. If you default, it affects me. If you get into trouble, it's my credit. That's not me being dramatic. That's the literal purpose of the document. Dad leaned forward, voice low and furious. Do you want to ruin this for them? He hissed. Do you want your brother to lose the house because you won't help? The old reflex, try to rise, guilt, panic, that familiar pressure to fix everything. I felt it tug in my chest like a hook. Then I remembered the car finance inquiry. I remembered seeing my name on that application. I remembered the broker saying, your father provided documents. And the hook snapped. I'm not ruining anything, I said quietly. You ruined trust. You ruined a relationship when you decided my identity was something you could borrow. Dad's face tightened. Mom's tears slid down her cheeks. Liam stared at me with a mix of anger and something else. Fear, maybe because the scheme was slipping. So I did the part I'd been saving. I flipped to the second tab and slid my credit report across the table toward Chloe, because Chloe is the one who always acts like she's the organized adult in the room. This is my credit file, I said. It has 2 inquiries I didn't authorize. One from the broker, one from car finance. For a UTA. Liam's head snapped up. What? He blurted. I looked at him. Did you apply for car finance too? His eyes darted to Dad. Dad didn't look at him. Mom made a small sound like she'd swallowed something wrong. Chloe's face went pale. Liam, she whispered, and that whisper held more anger than yelling. Liam stammered. Dad said. He said it was a backup. A backup? My Aunt Tanya echoed, incredulous. A backup identity theft plan? Dad finally exploded. Enough, he barked, loud enough that heads turned from the other end of the yard. A few conversations died. People stared. Dad chest heaved. His eyes were bright with rage and humiliation. You're making us look bad, he said, voice shaking. We're family. We handle things privately. Not like this. I stared at him. You tried to handle it privately by cornering me, I said. I'm handling it publicly because you used the public, this gathering, to pressure me. For a second, everything hung there. The papers, the staring relatives, the fairy lights above us pretending this was still a normal Sunday. Then Grandma spoke again, and it sliced through the tension like a knife through soft bread. Mark, she said, disappointed in a way that made my dad flinch, you don't use your children like that. Dad turned toward her, his face shifting instantly into wounded son. Mom, you don't understand. I understand plenty, Grandma said, and her voice trembled. I understand my granddaughter is shaking while you try to make her sign something she doesn't want. I understand you're hiding behind family like that makes it right. My throat tightened. I hadn't realized I was shaking until Grandma said it, and I felt my own hands trembling in my lap. Liam pushed his chair back. Fine, he snapped, trying to regain control with anger. If you don't want to help, just say that. Don't do this whole performance. I met his eyes. You want the truth? I said, I don't want to help you like this. I don't want to be responsible for your mortgage. And I especially don't want to help you after someone tried to apply for car finance in my name. Chloe stood up too, face flushed with a mix of humiliation and betrayal. You let your dad do that? She hissed at Liam. Liam looked cornered, like a man who'd been playing two sides and just realized they'd met. Dad's voice dropped again, cold and sharp. So what now? He demanded. You're going to report us? You're going to destroy your own family. I took a breath. My heart was still thumping, but my brain felt clear in a way it hadn't for weeks. Here's what's going to happen, I said, keeping my voice level even though my body wanted to bolt. I'm not signing anything today, or ever. I've already frozen my credit. I've already told the broker to withdraw the application. If anyone tries to use my information again, I will treat it as fraud, because that's what it is. Mom's voice cracked. Please. And I added, flipping to the third tab, I have something else. Dad's eyes narrowed, suspicious. I slid out a single page and placed it in the middle of the table. It was a printed email confirmation from an aged care provider, an invoice paid, in full, for Grandma's upcoming respite stay. Not because Grandma needed it right now, but because we've been discussing options and I decided, quietly, to take one worry off her plate. I'd done it directly, without telling my parents, because I knew they'd turn it into leverage. I paid for Grandma's respite, I said gently, looking at Grandma first. Because you asked me last month if it would be possible, and I said I'd see what I could do. Grandma's eyes widened. Oh, love, she whispered. Mom's face twisted, shock, gratitude, and something uglier underneath, because I'd helped in a way that didn't involve them controlling it. You did that? She breathed. Yes, I said. So no one gets to use Grandma as a guilt weapon today. If you're struggling, you can be honest and ask for help like adults. But you don't get to trap me with a guarantee and pretend it's for family. The table went quiet again, but it was a different quiet now. Not tension only. Something like clarity had entered the room. A few relatives drifted closer, drawn by the raised voices earlier. My cousin's husband hovered, eyebrows up. My Aunt Karen stood near the door with her hand over her mouth. People were listening. Dad looked around and realized, too late, that the audience had shifted. This wasn't him rallying the family against me. This was the family seeing him. He swallowed hard and said, You think you're better than us. I shook my head. No, I said, I think I deserve basic respect. I think my identity isn't a family resource. And I think help doesn't mean sign whatever we put in front of you. Liam made a frustrated sound and stormed away toward the house. Chloe followed him, furious, whispering sharply as they went. Mum stood frozen, torn between chasing them and staying to manage the mess. Dad stayed seated, face tight, like he couldn't decide whether to rage or retreat. My Aunt Tanya leaned down beside me and murmured, "Good," like she was anchoring me in place. Grandma reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. Her palm was warm. "Thank you," she said softly, not just for the respite invoice, but for speaking. My chest loosened a fraction, and for a second I wanted to cry, right there, in front of everyone. But I didn't. I just squeezed Grandma's hand back. The rest of the gathering didn't magically become fun again. It broke into awkward clusters. People whispered. Someone turned the music down. Dad went inside and slammed a cupboard door hard enough that the cutlery rattled. Mom followed him, hissing his name. Liam and Chloe left early. The fairy lights kept humming like they didn't know anything had changed. I stayed for Grandma. We sat on the patio together while the sun dropped lower, and she asked me, very quietly, have they done this before? I didn't want to lie to her, but I didn't want to dump everything on her either, so I just said, they've tried, and that was enough. Grandma sighed, the kind of sigh that comes from years of watching patterns repeat. On the drive home, my phone buzzed nonstop. Dad called 3 times. Mom sent messages in waves. First anger, then pleading, then guilt, then a voice note where she cried and said, "We were desperate." Liam sent one text. "Hope you're happy." Chloe sent, "You ruined everything." I pulled over at a petrol station because my hands were shaking too much to drive safely, and I sat there with the steering wheel under my palms, feeling that weird aftershock that comes when adrenaline drops and your body realizes what just happened. My throat hurt. My jaw ached from being clenched for an hour. But underneath all of it was something steady, relief. Because here's what coming out on top looked like in real life. It wasn't a movie mic drop. It was me opening my banking app at midnight and seeing no new applications. It was me checking my credit file the next day and seeing the freeze still active. It was me getting an email from the broker confirming, in writing, that the application was withdrawn and my details would not be used without direct consent. It was me sleeping a full 6 hours for the first time in weeks. 2 days later, Mom turned up at my place unannounced. She stood in my doorway with puffy eyes and that same dish towel energy, like she needed something to hold the feel and control. "Your father is furious," she said immediately. I didn't invite her in. I leaned against my doorframe and said, "Okay." Mom blinked like she'd expected me to fold. "He says you made him look like a thief." "He made himself look like a thief," I said quietly. Her face crumpled. "We didn't mean to hurt you." "You still the hair." "Then why didn't you ask me?" I asked. "Why did you try to trick me into signing?" Mom looked down at her hands. "Because you would have said no," she whispered. There it was. The truth, small and blunt. They didn't ambush me because it was easier. They ambushed me because it was the only way to get what they wanted. "I'm allowed to say no," I said. My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Mom nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I know," she whispered, and she sounded like someone saying something new in a language she'd avoided learning. Dad didn't apologize. Liam didn't either. What happened instead was quieter and, honestly, more telling. They stopped trying. The broker stopped calling. No new credit inquiries appeared. Liam and Chloe found another arrangement, one that didn't require my name. Dad stopped asking me to help, not because he suddenly respected me, but because the scheme had failed in front of witnesses, and he knew I had receipts and the spine to use them. A week after the gathering, my Aunt Karen called me and said, "I'm sorry," in a small, shaky voice. I didn't know, but I'm glad you didn't sign. My cousin texted, "Proud of you," and I cried in my laundry room while the dryer thumped because I didn't know where else to put the feelings. And Grandma? Grandma called me one morning and said, "I'm making soup. Come over if you want. No guilt, no agenda. Just soup." I went, and we sat at her kitchen table while she chopped carrots and told me stories about when my dad was young and always tried to be the boss. She didn't excuse him. She didn't make me responsible for fixing him. She just let the truth be the truth. So yeah, I turned their scheme against them. Not by screaming louder, not by being crueler, by refusing to sign, by bringing facts, by forcing them to say the quiet part out loud in front of people who couldn't pretend not to hear it. And I came out on top, because when I left that backyard, I left with my credit intact, my identity protected, my boundaries finally visible, and the knowledge that if they ever try again, I won't be cornered at a table with fairy lights overhead and a pen pushed toward my hand like I'm supposed to smile while I sign my life away.